All right.
All right.
Hey.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi.
Whew. It's Thursday.
It's Thursday.
It's Thursday, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Right.
I think so. Welcome to the I think so. Welcome back to the OCR World Championships live preview show. It is now Thursday, and I am Margaret Schlachter from Mud Run Guide, and here once again with Brad Kloha from OCR World Championships, COO of OCR World Championships. Tonight we are going to bring you more news, updates, and the predictions that everybody wanted to hear about. We are talking about the elite race this evening. So without further ado, Brad, tell me what has been going on course today. Maybe what hasn't been going on course. For those that are watching, the alien hand is in full effect tonight.
Yep. It's back. Lots of branding. You'll see all that action out on all the obstacles, pretty much. Lots of branding. What hasn't been going on in the course? Tons of building. We've had a lot of great staff, volunteers from all over the place. A lot of those race directors from a lot of different races have been in helping us finish a lot of the builds on a lot of the obstacles that will be out on the course. We've had a lot of athletes from all over the world coming in, excited about the changes that, if they were here last year, the things that they're able to see right brand new up front in the festival area. So they're excited about those changes that we're excited about bringing them as well. So lots of last action about those builds that we're doing now, and work's going to continue into the night as we continue to build those final obstacles, as we make everything perfect and ready for the athletes as they start to arrive tomorrow for packet pickup, as OCR Warrior takes place from 12 to 4. As athletes arrive, can watch that. As those athletes that are competing in best of the best OCR Warrior, it's gonna be an outstanding day starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
starting tomorrow.
You know, the races for OCR World Championships start Saturday, but the whole weekend starts really tomorrow with OCR Warrior, packet pickup, the pre-race dinner, the exclusive preview of Rise of the Sufferfest, that documentary, all of those sorts of things. So we've got a lot going on already tomorrow. So it's Thursday, but Friday, everything kicks off.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess we should say a shout out to everybody that is currently out at the unofficial pre-race party. So hope you guys are all having fun.
Yeah.
Cheers to you all out there. I hope you have a Yingling.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a game that you guys all came up with. So
yeah, glad we started a drinking game for you all. So for all of you playing along for the drinking game, Sweden.
Cheers. All right, one tiny thing. We talked about this a little bit earlier. So
Brett's interrupting the show.
Yeah, shocking. Brett had to talk.
Well, we're early yet. So because OCR Warrior is going on from 12 to 4 tomorrow, and athletes will actually be touching a few of the obstacles.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we wanted to make it very clear that during that time between 12 and 4, while OCR Warrior is going on in between, we're going to allow other athletes an opportunity to test those same obstacles. So we don't want to give anyone too much of an advantage by competing in OCR Warrior. So here's what you need to do. You need to come out and watch OCR Warrior, and when we're through with using those obstacles in between each of the heats, you can go out there and try the obstacles. Talk to us before you go on the course, but we will let you test those obstacles.
And specifically those obstacles. Specifically those obstacles.
Just those obstacles. Look for me, look for Margaret, look for Brad, look for Adrian. We will clue you into it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Sweden.
All right, Brad, and I think we have one or two announcements. We put it on social media, but for those that have already sent Brad, or actually Brad gets all the emails, but sent OCR World Championships that has sent OCR World Championships emails about not being able to make packet pickup tomorrow, you will be receiving updated instructions by tomorrow afternoon. For everybody that's a team-only racer, you're going to be receiving an email tomorrow afternoon as well about packet pickup instructions. So yeah, if you have any problem with getting to packet pickup tomorrow, look for an email tomorrow afternoon with instructions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you covered that perfectly.
Let's see.
Probably better than I could at this point. Take over my job. You got it.
What other updates do you have? Oh, I think we've got something in front of us to show everybody.
Oh yeah. Well, no. Let's wait for the elite preview.
Okay.
Let's wait for that.
All right.
That's a big deal. Let's talk about a few things.
Okay. I'm gonna say if you haven't checked out, go over to Mud Run Guide. We've got the Destroyer obstacle, a video that Brett Stewart did earlier today, and then tonight, Evan Dollard, who's going to be our amazing announcer, he tested Dragon's Back, so he made it look extremely easy.
Yeah.
Well, he's a Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, when you've been on American Ninja Warrior a few times, when you've got that kind of experience, I think you can make a lot of those obstacles look pretty easy. So
I would love to make it look that smooth ever in my life. But I tested out a few of the obstacles today too. It's really fun. They're super fun so far. Skull Alley looks awesome.
Absolutely.
Look for a preview of that tomorrow. And Skull Valley. I always say Alley. I want to call it Alley.
We can change it.
Yeah.
All right. So the one last thing we want to talk about, I know the weather has been on the minds of a lot of people.
It has, yeah.
So
that could play a factor in the race too.
Completely.
Yes. And I think some of those athletes who have some of those later age groups that weren't too happy about it before, they're pretty excited because now it may be a little bit colder. So it may be a little bit warmer. I mean,
there is a frost warning or frost possibly up to 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. But to give you guys a little weather update from weather.com, they said that around 8 a.m. it should be about 35 degrees, so dress accordingly. Noon it should be about 48 degrees, and we'll hit the high of the day about 54 at 5 p.m. I feel like a weatherman. Am I a weather woman now?
Maybe.
Okay. Do you have any updates for the team race before we jump into our elites?
For those athletes who are going to be competing in the team competition, you really know probably about that new format, and it's pretty exciting. Brand new format, relay format. We're going to have really focusing on those specialties that really make that all-around obstacle race. But this time, focusing on each athlete bringing their individual strengths. So hopefully those teams have been formed based on those individual strengths. Speed, so an athlete who's really great with that running style, technique, and agility based on obstacle proficiency, and also strength. So those athletes who are best on strength. And then those three athletes are going to come together and finish the course together in teamwork. So that's been one of the tenets that's really been with obstacle racing from the beginning is teamwork. Teamwork. So sometimes you don't see that in a lot of the elite races and that type of thing because everybody's competing heavily. But now in this team format, you're going to come together and we're going to actually be working really hard Saturday night. We're going to change the course a little bit. So the strength athletes who the course will be pretty similar, but the strength athletes might see some of those strength obstacles be a little bit heavier.
So like the rec bag's going to be 3 rec bags instead of 1?
I don't know about that, but it may be a little bit heavier, but maybe we'll add a little bit more weight, but they could be expected to be doing a lot more strength-based obstacles, those type of things. That will be the focus. The speed athlete can be expected to do primarily running. The obstacle athlete can be expected to do obstacle, which is probably going to make that athlete pretty happy. And then once we get to that teamwork, again, we're going to change up a lot of those obstacles that we have, and maybe it will be some pretty similar obstacles that we have already have out there, but we're going to change them up so that no longer could they actually do them by themselves. They're going to have to work together to actually complete those obstacles together.
Gotcha. Sounds like fun. It's going to be an exciting race to watch. And Sunday morning, even if you're not racing, I'd say come out and watch.
Absolutely.
It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, and then at 10 o'clock is when the Operation Enduring Warrior athletes are going to go out together too. And that's going to be a big highlight.
Exactly. All right, let's jump into the races that, I don't know, at least I feel like everybody's been talking about. And here at the Build Crew, and as the international athletes have come in to check it out and say hi, everyone's been asking, what is going to happen? Who's going to be the next world champions?
Absolutely. Well, and I think this is the time to show the special item. And for a lot of people who have been watching social media, we announced this earlier, but they're in now. And so this year, we're actually going to be presenting last year's champion, Siri England, and also John Elbin with their championship rings. So and if you can see that pretty well, I don't know how well you all can see that, the quality may not be that great, but OCR World Championship World Champion rings for the elite men's and women's champions. So obviously John and Siri will be presented with those for winning last year, and then this year's champions, they'll be to be determined who will receive that ring. So something a little bit different in obstacle racing. You know, kind of taking a cue from the Super Bowl, from baseball, from the world of professional sports, and so getting those world champions their rings as well. But let's see who's going to get that ring.
Yeah, let's talk about. So first, we're going to talk about the women's elite race, which is going to be going off at 8:30 a.m. I think Brad has about half the field on his computer highlighted.
It's true.
So let's go through who you think, and then maybe I'll add one or two.
You know, but I think this field is going to be very tight, because what's going to be very different this year is I think that there's a lot of athletes who have so many combined skills that really meet this course and the balance that it has. So there's going to be a lot more athletes that have the balance necessary, that are going to be able to combine all that it takes to actually reach the podium.
And let me guess, you want Sweden.
I think, well, I don't know. I think that they have a really good chance, but I think that there's some other athletes in here that are going to find their way to the podium. So I have some different picks here.
All right.
So I'll get to that. So, I mean, they're in there. Obviously, you do have to give Siri England some love. Obviously, she's a returning champion. She knows the course. She found her way there last year. And so she knows the course. She's been training for it. She told us last night. She's been training even more. She's found a love for the sport. So you have to give her some love as well.
Definitely.
But she even told us that she had her own picks. And one of those was Amelia Boone.
Yes.
Which, again, Amelia Boone is pretty much a legend, a rock star in the OCR world. And so you can't not pick Amelia Boone to be a favorite in the race. But, you know, Amelia could potentially struggle in a race like this, where it's a mandatory obstacle completion, and one with a lot of rigs, those kind of things. But, you know, I have a lot of faith in an athlete like Amelia. Amelia is very adaptive.
It's hard not to.
It's hard not to, you know. So Amelia, in any race that she enters, she's always a favorite. But also, one of the names that does come is also from Sweden, and that came from Syria as well, is Karen Carlson. She's been doing very well in toughest. She's actually been leading Syria in many of the races as well. So she's going to come to us, and she's going to be very proficient in the obstacles. She's going to run very well, and so she has that balance as an athlete, and she's going to probably perform very well too. However, there's many more athletes.
There's many more. I have my list. You have your list. Your list is a lot longer than mine.
Yeah, but I think looking at your list, we have a lot of the same ones. Okay? All right. So Chikorita
from Mexico.
And I think a very familiar name for a lot of people who follow obstacle racing.
Very fast runner.
Very fast runner.
Lives at altitude.
So likes those hills. Again, so let's see how she does on those obstacles.
But I don't know how much experience she has in a mandatory obstacle completion scenario. So that will be new for her.
Exactly. And I think that's going to be for a lot of these athletes who are brand new to the obstacle course racing world championships, is if they haven't been in a mandatory obstacle completion environment, what will that do? Will that add that pressure as they're at those obstacles? And will that add frustration when they have to go make another attempt, or will they be able to fly through? How will that?
Changes your strategy.
Absolutely. But Chikorita is always any race that she enters, she's always a favorite.
Exactly.
Deanna Blagg from Australia.
Yes.
Pretty much, again, a legend within the sport of obstacle racing. You can't talk about obstacle racing without talking Deanna Blagg. But again, she found her way. Again, she was very successful last year throughout the race. Will she necessarily find her way to the podium? I don't know, but I have to give love to Deanna Blagg, because I love Deanna Blagg. So I have to give her some love.
We love the Australians as well.
And another athlete out of the UK now, Freya Martin. Probably not a name that people know.
Blazing fast.
Blazing fast.
Her name has come up multiple times in multiple conversations with many people from Europe, so she cannot be overlooked.
And if you look at the races that she's recently ran, she's just winning them. And so she's blazing fast. She's looking for that. So, but again, how will she adapt to that course? And that's what the X factor now is. This course. You bring in an even playing field for a lot of these athletes, and now what's going to happen? Now here's a name that again is going to be very familiar to a lot of people. Lindsay Webster out of Canada
has been dominating. She is the fiance of Ryan Atkins,
Yes.
which I think almost everyone knows in the
Yep, I'm pretty
racing
sure.
world now. And Ryan creates her training program.
Yeah, and so we could actually, I think it's a very strong possibility.
A couple could take a 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, we saw them take 2-2 at Spartan Race World Championships. So I think that we could see them do very well again. And so I think, and Lindsay is very familiar with mandatory obstacle completion. She's very familiar with the rigs, all of those types of things. Again, also from Canada, very familiar with mandatory obstacle completion, loves platinum rigs. And she will tell you of that love. She
loves mountains.
Loves mountains.
I know. Should we tell them who we're talking about?
Of course. Pod God Boat. And she's won world championships before, twice at Spartan Race. And so I think, again, she's always a favorite whenever she enters a race. And so she could do really well.
Yeah.
And then I want to give some love. Also, we're going to go back to Sweden again. And
your favorite country.
We've already drank. Brett, Brett's cheering. We're going to go to Maria Wellen.
Okay.
Probably not a name that maybe some people know. She didn't finish in the podium. She failed an obstacle. The platinum rig did her in last year. But what she's done this year is she's been traveling all over Europe. And so now she's got a lot of balance of a lot of different obstacle races, and she's been winning those races as she's been traveling all over Europe. So I think she's going to come in well prepared, and she wants to win. She wants revenge on the course. She wants revenge on what happened last year. And so I think she's going to come in with a vengeance, and she could find her way there too.
And she's a pretty diverse race resume.
Yep. Corinna Coffin, also from the U.S., very strong athlete. We've seen her do very well last year. Again, another athlete from Battle Frog Series. Knows the rigs well, knows tough courses, knows mandatory obstacle completion. So again, never count Corinna Coffin out either. And she's familiar with this type of trail and environment too. She's ran here before. She ran here last year. She's ran at Mud Guts and Glory. So she's always a favorite as well. And Amy Pagic too. She's always there. But
American Ninja Warrior.
American Ninja Warrior. Yep.
She thought that the rig should have been harder last year. So obstacles will be no problem for her. It'll just be, can she keep up with some of the speedier women? And
now, before I get to my pick for the winner, I'm going to go with my dark horse.
Okay.
My dark horse. And I'm going to go with my dark horse before I go to my pick for the winner.
Okay.
My dark horse first is KK Paul.
She's on my list as well.
Okay. So and KK was in my list last year as well. And KK, what she's been doing too is she has been traveling to all different races.
Picked up and moved
to Colorado
to live at altitude.
Exactly.
Lives with Rack and Cracker.
Trains like crazy. So if you watch her training, and her training has shown. I mean, so from her results from last year to this year has increased exponentially. And again, she's an athlete who is not just going from one race series. She's going from race series to race series to race series to get that balance of what's out there. And that's what this World Championship is all about. It's combining all those different race series and figuring out what that strength is. So that could really play to KK's strengths and all the training that she's been doing. And obviously moving to Colorado, she's now familiar with all those hills and mountains, and that could play to her strengths too. So there's no doubt in my mind that KK could easily find her way to the podium.
And so she's been training for this all year.
Absolutely. And I think she's ready for it. But
my favorite,
my favorite, Rose Wetzel.
Yeah.
Probably no surprise, and no surprise on a name. And here's why. Rose is now familiar with the course. She's ran here at Mud Guts and Glory. She spent some time here while she was here.
I believe she spent about 2 to 3 weeks here, and to the point that she not only spent time here and ran out on the trails, but the summer camps that typically go on here were happening, and she actually wanted to join in on the camp activities.
Absolutely, she loved it.
I think she's become a fan favorite here at the King's Domain. And
how can you not love Wonder Woman? You're the Wonder Woman show. And she was on American Ninja Warrior this year, so she loves obstacles. Actually, she messaged me before. She asked me about the platinum rig. She asked me if we were going to make them harder. She wasn't here last year, but she wanted very hard rigs. She loves the challenge of obstacles. So I don't think that the obstacles are going to be an issue for her. She's an athlete who's been practicing on rock climbing, so she's very proficient there. So again, but the mandatory obstacle completion could be another thing that, okay, how will that factor in? So that's my only concern there for her. But I think that she's going to pull it out. I think she's that balanced athlete who is fast. She's not going to have a problem with the hills. We know her speed. She's a perennial podium finisher. She's a favorite in every race she goes to. She's great in the obstacles. Rose Wetzel's my pick for the win for the OCR World Championships.
I have one more dark horse to add to your list.
Okay, let's hear it.
First, I guess we have to say last year's second place female was Cassie Watton. She is not here this year, so that opens up a spot on the podium possibly. And the other one who you didn't mention, who is done very well, she's been a newcomer this year pretty much, is Kate Kramer.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Kate does not have the experience, though, of racing on mandatory obstacle completion type courses. Most of the races that she runs are a penalty-based for an obstacle failure. So that's going to be new for her, but I don't think that we can rule her out of a top 5, top 10 finish, maybe even a podium spot. But we'll definitely, she's one to watch for as well. So I guess now we're going to move on to the men's race, which I think the men's race is going to come down to 2 guys. But I think you're going to beg to differ.
Yeah, I beg to differ. I think, again, this is a very tight race and very wide open.
Should we tell them when the men go off? Doesn't matter.
8 a.m. 8 a.m. First wave of the day, 8 a.m., followed by the women at 8:30. So if you want to get here, watch those 2 races for that World Championship. And what I think is going to be exciting is I think that this could be a very tight race.
I think
same on the women's side.
Tight race.
And what it could come down to is I think they could come into Skull Valley, which is in that finish chute, and it could come down to that. So who's going to be able to finish that at and be able to come into the finish, like come up that quarter pipe and it could be a photo finish, but I have a long list.
I love that quarter pipe.
So I apologize for the viewers out there, and I hope you're going to stay with us because I have a long list, but there's so many favorites that it's tough to pick some. And some of these names are very familiar that I think people are going to agree that any of them could find their way to the podium.
So let's start with the names that are not household names first.
Absolutely.
And tell us a little bit about that.
I do want to talk about one name, though, that I did have really in my favorite list from the beginning. I was really excited that he was going to be here, but unfortunately he has an injury now and won't be joining us, and that's Thomas Blanc out of France. Unfortunately, he has an injury, so he isn't able to join us here for the World Championships. He's really disappointed. He messaged me the other day and said, I've been waiting to send this message because I'm heartbroken. I really wanted to be there. So we're going to miss him, and I think he could have done well here. He does well in all the Europe circuit, but he would have been great.
So
here.
2016, we should be watching for him.
Watch for
Brad
him.
has already given his predictions for 2016.
I know. Hey, why not? Okay, so a couple names that people may not be as familiar with. Jessie de Heer out of the Netherlands just found the sport of obstacle racing literally just this year, a few months ago. But he went out and he has crushed some courses in the Netherlands and has destroyed the competition over there. So he could come in. He has a background in some other different sports in endurance racing, and so who knows what he could do. And we've seen athletes like that all the time that they come from a different background and they do well. However, we've also seen athletes who come from a different background, and when they get into a situation like a mandatory obstacle completion or are faced with things that they're not used to,
it changes the game.
Changes the game. Or when they're up against a caliber of the competition that they're going to see in this type of a stacked elite heat that we have here, it's a little bit different game than maybe your everyday race. So, but he could definitely find his way to the podium because of the way that he's done. A couple other names. Chris Lemke out of Germany.
Okay.
Another athlete.
Another new name for many of us in the U.S.
Yep. Out of Germany, very fast. He's really excited. He's been posting all over social media about how he's coming to the U.S. He can't wait. He's competing in elite. He's been posting about the races he does, his finishes, those type of things. I think he's just really excited. But I think he's primarily a runner. So we'll really see how he does on those obstacles, what he does. I'm a little bit worried about his weight to strength ratio, especially when he gets there, and that grip strength. So we'll see how he does that.
That could really carry this year is no joke.
And the bucket carry and a few other surprises.
Few other surprises.
Yep.
Just one or two.
Another one I want to say out of France now. So we had Thomas Blanc, who's no longer here, but Sebastian dos Santos. out of France. So he just recently won the first ever French national championships that they held.
Oh, wow.
So he won that race, and now he's coming to race here. So we don't know much about him. And all I know is that he's now won that French national championships out of all the French athletes who competed there. So again, he's a dark horse that could really do well. And really we could find him on the podium and see France represented.
All right.
Another name that we could find. Sorry, I have to scroll down my list of all those that.
I can look over, and he has probably about 20 names. So
sorry. Okay, I'm gonna go to this name. He was here last year.
Yes.
South African. Again, very obstacle proficient. He's been leading in the point series for the Jeep Warrior race. Extremely tough in terms of the obstacles. Again, my only concern, and I've said this before, is the running aspect. But he's really been improving his running, I think. Thomas Van Tonder.
Yes.
So I think that he could really do well in terms of possibly finding his way to the podium. And I think a lot of those South Africans, they want to find their way to the podium. If they didn't last year, there were a couple that did in their age groups, but I think that they want to find their way there in the elite. And I think that Thomas is their best bet for finding their way to the podium.
Thomas is the pick from South Africa.
If they're going to find their way to the podium in the elite, Thomas is that hope, I think. A name out of the UK, and this is a great story. I want to be able to tell this story too, and this is a great Tristan Steed out of the UK. Okay.
Okay.
And he's very humble about this because he has apparently beaten John Albin's record at a previous race, a nuts challenge. But what he will tell you is that it's a very different race, a very different course. He says, don't let my friends tell you this, that I've beaten his race. It was a different time. It was a few years ago that John ran this course. It was a different course, different time. Great guy. But what's even better is he's actually in the British military.
Yes.
And they gave him special leave specifically for this race to come run the World Championship race. And they actually sponsored him and sent him here to run this race.
So he's not only representing the UK, he's also representing
the British military. So I think that's a lot of pressure. I mean, you got special leave, so he's here, but he's extremely fast. Yeah, there's no doubt about there. So I think there's a reason why they actually sent him over to do that. So he's in there definitely as a contender. So, and then there's another name that I want to give as a few dark horses as well. Okay. But some of them are familiar. One that's not probably as familiar to people, but except in some of the local Midwest U.S. communities, Nathan Palmer.
All right.
Though if you've been following the OCR World Championships World Rankings, he's been at the top with Ryan Atkins and John Albin because he's been winning a lot of races around the Midwest. Yes. So he's a very talented athlete, very obstacle proficient, very fast. He finds his way to the podium. In Austin, in Spartan races. So there's no doubt that he's very talented, but this is a very, very talented pool. This is a very,
this might be a step up from some.
Napalm is extremely talented, but I think he's a little bit more proficient in the sprints.
Yes.
So this is a little bit longer for him.
All right. Who else do we have?
I also like Marco Bedard. Obviously, out of Canada.
And Marco is, I believe, feeling better now. He's got pretty sick and ended up in the hospital right before the Spartan Race World Championships. So last I heard, he is feeling better. So hopefully look for him to have a good race.
And actually, he just won a race in Canada.
He won X-Men, I believe it was last
Dead End Race.
Dead End Race. Sorry, Dead End Race.
And Marco loves platinum rigs. Again, he sports his orange very proudly for Dead End Race.
And is also a Battle Frog athlete. So
mandatory completion. Very often you find him behind Ryan Atkins at Battle Frog.
Should we mention he's also an Olympian?
And also an Olympian. So you can't fight the fact that he's a very
knows pressure.
Absolutely. So Marco, I think that it's going to be tough for him to find a podium. Yes. I love you, Marco, but it's going to be tough for him to find a podium in this very stacked field. But Marco's extremely talented.
A top 10 finisher.
Right, and with the type of obstacles that will be here, especially the technique that will be involved, the number of platinum rigs, the things like Skull Valley, that could really play to Marco's strengths. Yes. One of the other guys, and he has been, he didn't do as well as he would have liked. Yes. And the reason why I like him so much is that he claimed that, and his training, he has stepped up quite a bit. Bracken Kraker.
Yes.
You know, he hasn't necessarily been feeling as well.
Yeah, he's been sick for the last couple of weeks now. So I talked to him this evening, and he said that he is feeling better, still a little weak.
Yep.
So, but he's going to give it his all out there on the course.
And an athlete like Bracken, for not feeling so well, that doesn't mean a whole lot for somebody like that.
And the correct pronunciation from him is Crocker.
Crocker.
Like
sorry.
Betty.
Betty Crocker. Well, hey, you heard it here first, folks. Bracken Crocker. Got it here.
All
so
right.
and again, and he actually wrote that in a story that, you know, he was upset with the fact that, you know, how he performed here at the World Championships last year. He was really disappointed, and he wanted vengeance on this course. So that's great, and I think that that's awesome, and I can't wait to see how he does, and he's adapted his training, and that's going to be really kind of cool. So let's get into some names that I think that are really going to do well, and some familiar names.
All right, I'm going to start you off with Jung Young Pak.
Yes, Pak. Yes,
is a favorite on this particular course as well.
Pak has ran here at Mud Guts and Glory, the home course of King's Domain, and where we built the World Championships course around. So he has ran here from their first race. He's ran here every single race that they've had. So he knows this course well. He holds the course record here for Mud Guts and Glory. And so he knows it. He knows the hills, but it's extended here. So that's what's a little bit different. There's some different sections. And you know, he's been training, I think, for a little bit more of revenge on World's Toughest Mudder. He wasn't happy with his how it all played out last year for him. So we'll see how he does. You know, again, it's a very stacked field with everyone there. But Pak is always, again, a threat in any race that he enters. And Pak is very humble about how he races, and very, very more candid about how he trains and where he stands with his training and his level of fitness. So you never know how he's going to come out and perform.
All right, I'm going to move you on to the Utahns, my home state. Let's talk about the two big contenders from my state. Let's start with Cody Moe first.
Well, because I want to stay away from that one first.
Okay.
I want to stay away. I'm going to start with Hobie.
All right,
I'm going to leave Cody for later. Okay.
All right.
That's important. That's important. That might be a leading sort of thing. But Hobie's back again last year. He placed third. So there's no doubt about the fact that he could easily find his way to the podium. Everybody knows pretty much Hobie calls name. He's always dominant in the races that he's been at. Hasn't been racing quite as much, but again, you can never count Hobie call out.
The only thing that might trip Hobie up on race day is he is not a fan of cold weather. And he will tell anybody that he does not like cold weather. So that 35-degree start and some water mixed in, that might slow him down a little bit, but you can't count him out.
Exactly.
So
Hobie always typically, you see him find a way, and so
you can't count him out.
Hobie's there, so he's got to.
All right, so I'll leave your other Utah guy for later, but let's talk about Robert Killian.
Robert Killian, again.
Robert Killian Jr., I should say.
Absolutely a favorite. Okay, so a lot of people felt like he came out of nowhere to win the Spartan Race World Championships just a couple weeks ago. But this guy, if you've seen his resume.
Link on Athlinks.
Oh, the quick link on Athlinks, the quick research of Mud Run Guide now. His story is amazing. This guy is from the Army.
He finished second in the Ranger Games.
In the Ranger Games. He has won the military division of the Kona Ironman. He's just a beast in all sense of the word.
He's pretty much good at everything, and he's a very proficient mountain runner.
Absolutely. And he's found the sport of obstacle racing now. And so if you've seen him run, he's found the sport, and he's a quick study. And so he's just found it, and now he learned it, and he showed it at the Spartan Race World Championships, and he won it. So a lot of people were kind of like, who is he? How did that happen?
A quick look.
Anybody who was watching it, and I was watching it because his registration was in, so I knew who he was, and I saw his resume, and it was no surprise to me that he had won. So I would not be surprised to see him at the top of the podium here too. But again, what could trip him up? I don't know that he's been in a mandatory obstacle completion situation before, and all the platinum, all the agility obstacles, all those types of things. I don't know how that.
However, you can't discount military training.
Absolutely, so. Never can. Exactly. The things that they're going through definitely trumps a lot of different types of training. So I think he's going to be very adaptable. So we'll see how that goes, but he's obviously has to be a favorite.
Okay, well, I will let you move on then because I'm feeling you have a few more, and then I have my top 3 picks. So
I want to go to Matt Murphy out of Australia. Matt Murphy, we haven't heard from him in a little while in terms of racing.
A new son.
A new son. So
and just bought a new house. Yeah. So Matt's been off the traveling radar, but
he's here. He traveled here. He's racing. He checked out a little bit of the terrain that we have here, and he's very excited about it. I talked to him today. He's very excited about what's going to be out there. He can't wait to see what the entire course has to hold.
He and John Albin were hanging out all day. So.
He and John Albin and Ryan Atkins have just started a brand new venture to talk about all their training.
They'll give you training tips. So
who better to learn from training from Ryan Atkins, John Albin, and Matt Murphy, some pretty proven talent in the OCR community. So I think Matt Murphy could definitely find his way to a title contention. But again, having been away from the sport a little bit more, not maybe I don't know really where he is in terms of his shape. He hasn't been contending with a lot of these athletes, but again, he could be that sleeper because you don't know.
He's definitely a sleeper pick.
And that's where we saw a lot on the women's side last year. You didn't know, so he could be that guy who sneaks in there and demolishes everyone. I want to go then to another name out of the UK, very familiar, James Appleton.
Yes.
Very familiar name in the OCR world. Very proficient in terms of mountain running, that type of thing. I think that he could find his way to the podium. I think that he and Albin have run together quite a bit. So I think that he could very well also represent the UK on the podium.
All right. Do you have 1 or 2 more? And then we'll talk about the
I do have a couple more. Kimmy Wignall.
Yes. And Kimmy was on the show last night.
Out of Sweden.
So.
Sweden. Kimmy found his way to a 4th place finish last year, and so I think that he could come back and do pretty well.
As he said last night, though, he has had some injuries this year.
He hasn't been training as much, so he may not do as well. There's some stiffer competition, I think, this year, so who knows how that will go for him. And then obviously there's my 3 favorites. I think that I'm going to go with now.
Okay.
That I think that we're going to possibly find.
Maybe we're on the same page.
Well, actually, Robert Killian. So I have 4.
Okay.
So Robert Killian obviously is in there.
Only 3 can podium.
I know, but there's 4 that I think are going to be contending there. So obviously Robert Killian, what we already talked about. John Albin, the returning champion. You have to love where he's been. He's been dominating in the toughest series.
He's undefeated.
Undefeated in the toughest series. And then he'll dominate in the toughest race on Saturday, and then he'll go run a Spartan race.
Hop on a flight and go win the Spartan Race European Championships in Slovakia the next day. So Sweden one day, Slovakia the next day. I talked to John today. He said, John is always one of the most humble athletes in the sport as well. He said, I don't know if I'm going to win or not. I think, and this is probably going to lead into one of our next athletes, I think it's going to come down to a run between Ryan and I, but he had lots of very nice things to say about Ryan. So maybe we should move on to Ryan Atkins, the Canadian.
Absolutely.
That is
Ryan has been blowing up obstacle racing all over the place. The big story has been his undefeated streak in Battle Frog. Again, mandatory obstacle completion. We've been talking about that a lot with the elite women, and we're back to elite men. Technical obstacles, very tough courses. Again, he loves the rigs. He, like John, has been known to run a very difficult race, win it on Saturday, and then he'll fly somewhere and win another very difficult race on Sunday. And that has been common. He's won a Battle Frog on Saturday, and then he'll fly up and win a Spartan Beast on Sunday
in Canada. He's used to running in two countries in 2 days as well.
And he found his way 2nd place in the Spartan Race World Championships recently. So again, we know that Ryan was 2nd place last year, so he's obviously amazingly talented. Won World's Toughest Mudder last year for the 2nd year in a row. There's no doubt his talent, so he can easily find his way to the top of the podium, and there's no doubt about that.
All right, let's move to your 3rd Utah in my state.
Yes, and actually
move to Cody Moat.
Yes, and I think that this could be my pick.
All right.
And I think
this is your pick.
Yes, but any of those 4 really, and this was really tough for me on the men's side to have a true pick out of the 4 between Robert, John, Ryan, and Cody Moat.
Yes.
Cody Moat is, extremely well known. Cody has an extremely strong track record,
Yes.
Especially in any mountain races, any hill races. He loves those types of races. He just has a skill that even if he falls behind, somehow he's going to catch you.
Yes.
You watch him in any of those races, and he does that. So I think he has this proficiency to do that. But again, how's that mandatory obstacle completion going to transition? I don't know that he's ever done that type of thing, but Cody just has this amazing will to win. And so I think that could be this type of race for Cody. He's one of those racers that he, like John and like Ryan, he's going to be able to run up the hills while many of the other racers are power walking those hills. So I think that's going to possibly come down to Ryan, John, and Cody in a battle.
Which is basically will be a repeat of what we just saw at Spartan Race World Championships 2 weeks ago. But I think if I had to put money on the men's race, and from a horse racing background, I would probably do a trifecta box on John, Ryan, and Robert Killian. I think it's going to come down to those three, and I think Cody's going to come in fourth, but I think it's going to be a really tight race between all four. But I love Cody, but I think that it's really going to come down to those three, and Robert's going to make up for the time that it takes him possibly to do more of the technical obstacles in his mountain running, which he just destroyed last week. So I guess we'll see. Either one of us, well, we could both be wrong, totally.
We totally could. Who knows?
So I guess at this point, we just have a few more minutes. I know we've run a little bit later than we wanted to run. We wanted to only have a half an hour, but if we've got any questions, we're happy to answer them for the next few minutes. And do we have any questions from the background?
Sure.
Yeah.
Band cutter, in or out?
Band cutter is
out for Saturday.
Is currently out for Saturday. It's one of those obstacles that we want to make sure that capacity is always an issue for obstacles. That's one of our main things that we want to look at.
No bottlenecks.
Bottlenecks. That's one of our biggest concerns. And as we looked at it, we just didn't believe that it was one of those things that had the capacity to accept enough for athletes, especially if we had a situation where John, Ryan,
if all four get there at once,
we didn't want to have any situation where there was the potential that anyone had to wait, and that became the deciding factor because anybody was waiting at an obstacle. So that was one of those decisions that we had to make.
And we're going to be very serious about the blocking penalties this year. And if you're prohibiting another athlete from making progress because you're hesitating, you will do what you have.
So if no blocking anybody, and if you are blocking another athlete, it's going to be taken seriously.
Yep, and we'll cover a lot of those in the mandatory athlete briefings tomorrow from 12 noon to 9 p.m. And again, we want to be very serious about those different things. The mandatory retry lanes for any athletes who are retrying, that one single lane is going to be there. And if you're not using that, that's going to be a DQ because those athletes who are making that first attempt they need that clean path.
Yes. And
any athlete who's at the back of their age group, and if another age group behind you is catching up, they possibly are in contention for first place. So they're going to get the opportunity to pass, and we need that ability to happen.
Yes.
Another question came up. A lot of folks are asking about our official shoe, Ice Bug.
Yeah.
Whether they'll be for sale.
Great question. They are for sale. There's a stock of ice bugs that are for sale. They have arrived. We've seen them. They'll be for sale right by the merchandise tent for all the OCR World Championship gear.
And the merchandise is pretty cool too. We've been looking at it from afar, but we haven't taken any of it. But we have been looking at it all week here. And Craft has been has been one of the apparel people. So
and starting at noon tomorrow and Friday, they're going to be already for sale. So athletes can get here and try those on. Pick up their swag.
Bring a credit card.
Yingling will also be for sale at noon. Starting on Friday, so athletes who are here to pick up their packets.
I don't know how many are going to be carbo loading before the race. Good idea, bad idea?
But hey, any of their spectators that they're bringing along to check it out, family members, and as they're watching OCR Warrior, lots of opportunities to have a Yingling, check it out, and enjoy a beer while you're watching OCR Warrior. Pick up some gear, pick up some gear, especially fast because I think it's going to go quickly, and pick up some ice bugs.
Excellent. All right. Well, I guess that's about it for this evening. And tune in tomorrow night. We are going to live stream the press conference. Brad and I are going to take the night off, and well, not the night off.
No.
We'll be probably.
I'll be doing the athlete briefing, so you might see me.
And I'll be at the press conference and then at the dinner tomorrow night. Check on Periscope, and here we also have it on YouTube. Some updates, and we'll give you some updates from the dinner tomorrow night. And then Saturday night, we are going to come back live again. We're shooting for 9 p.m., but check social media based on when we have racers on the course with some recap. Now it'll be the recap show.
Course closing toast.
And after the course closing toast at 8 p.m. So until then, all you out there at the party, enjoy. Cheers to you all. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys on the course and at packet pickup tomorrow. Have a good night.